All right, so today we're going on a deep dive, and you guys, this one's,
Oh, this is a good one.
yeah, we're going to be looking at how a university in Australia was able to provide free swimming lessons to kids
Okay.
while also training up future teachers at the same time.
Interesting.
Yeah, so talk about a win-win,
It
right?
is a win-win. And you know what's so cool about this particular case study
What's that?
is that it really highlights the power of partnerships,
Okay.
which we know are essential for achieving the UN's Sustainable Development Goals.
Right, right, those SDGs.
Yeah, especially SDG 3 and 4, which focus on health, well-being, and quality education for all.
It seems like everyone's talking about partnerships these days.
They are.
But is there any actual proof that they really work?
Well, that's the thing, right? Charles Badenoch, he's with World Vision. He pointed out that there's actually very little data out there that shows how effective partnerships really are in achieving those goals.
I see.
So that's where this Australian case study comes in. It provides some really solid evidence.
So we're not just getting like a feel-good story, we're getting something with some data behind it.
Exactly. It's a feel-good story, but it's backed by research.
I like it. So what exactly are we diving into?
We're taking a close look at a research article by Timothy Lynch. It was published in Cogent Education.
Gotcha.
And it's
Yeah.
fascinating. It really gives us this front row seat to see how these global goals, you know those SDGs we were talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
How those can play out on like a local level.
In the real world.
Exactly.
That's so cool. Okay, so let's dive in. What's this program all about?
It's called Best Start.
Best start. Okay.
And it took place in Gippsland, Victoria, Australia.
Right.
Now, what's really interesting is that it wasn't just run by one single organization.
Right.
It was a real collaborative effort.
Like a partnership in and of itself.
It was. You had a university involved, schools, the local health industry, even some international partners.
Wow, that's impressive. They really covered all the bases.
They did, and their goal, their big aim with Best Start
Yeah.
was twofold.
Okay.
First, they wanted to give pre-service teachers.
So those are teachers in training, basically.
Yeah, those who are still studying to become teachers.
Okay.
They wanted to give them some real-world experience.
Makes sense.
And at the same time, they wanted to benefit the local community.
Okay, I see. And we know a lot of teacher training programs are very theoretical.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a lot of textbooks, a lot of lectures, not a lot of hands-on stuff.
Yeah, and that can be a real problem. Like, imagine trying to learn how to bake just by reading a cookbook, but never actually touching the ingredients or turning on the oven.
Yeah, right. Good analogy.
It's the same kind of disconnect.
I get it. So how did they bridge that gap with Best Start?
Well, they did something really interesting. They actually redesigned a university unit called Experiencing Aquatic Environments.
Experiencing aquatic environments.
All right. And this was a required unit for all pre-service teachers specializing in physical education at Monash University.
So future gym teachers, basically.
Yeah.
And they had to learn about swimming and water safety.
Yeah, which makes sense, right?
Right.
But here's the really cool part.
Okay.
Instead of just learning the theory,
Okay.
the pre-service teachers actually had to obtain their swimming and water safety certifications.
Wow.
And the way they did that
Yeah.
was by teaching swimming lessons to kids.
Oh, so the student teachers get the practical experience. Yep. And the kids get free swimming lessons.
That's that idea.
That's brilliant. That's amazing.
It is.
Were these kids just like the children of the university faculty or something?
No,
Oh.
no, they were actually from a disadvantaged area in Gippsland,
Oh, wow.
where access to swimming lessons was limited.
So they were really targeting a community that needed this.
Exactly. And for many families who couldn't afford swimming lessons, this was a game changer.
I bet. That's really cool. So they called it Best Start, and I'm already seeing why.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
know what else is interesting? Is that around the same time, the Australian government, specifically the Victorian government, they had this initiative called School Centres for Teaching Excellence.
I think I remember hearing about that, yeah.
And it was all about promoting partnerships between universities and schools.
Okay.
Now, Best Start actually aligned very nicely with that initiative.
I'd imagine so.
You would think that would make it easier for them to secure funding, right?
Made sense to me.
But it wasn't quite that simple.
Really?
Despite aligning with the government's vision, Best Start actually didn't receive any dedicated funding.
Oh, dang.
So they had to be very creative and resourceful to make it all work.
Wow, that's even more impressive then.
It is.
Okay, so we've got future gym teachers getting hands-on experience teaching swimming to kids who really need it.
Yep.
But I have a feeling there's more to Best Start than just swimming lessons.
You're right. There is. There's another really important part of this program that we need to talk about.
Okay.
And it links back to those UN Sustainable Development Goals we mentioned earlier.
All right, well, I can't wait to hear about that, but
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to pause for now.
All right. Sounds good.
So last we left off, we were talking about Best Start
Right.
and how there was more to it than just swimming lessons.
Yeah,
And this other part ties into those UN goals,
it does.
the Sustainable Development Goals. So what's this other element?
So in addition to those swimming lessons,
Okay.
Best Start also had this fantastic program called the Friday Sports Program.
Friday Sports Program.
And essentially, the pre-service teachers would lead sports sessions every Friday for year 5 and 6 students.
So like once a week, the kids would get to do
Yeah.
sports.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that. So it's like a mini Olympics kind of thing.
Kind of like that, yeah.
Okay.
They had a whole range of different sports like basketball, soccer, cricket,
Cool.
Aussie rules football, even t-ball.
It's really a variety.
A real mix. And, it wasn't just about getting kids active.
No.
Remember how the UN talks about the role of sport
Yeah.
in promoting healthy lifestyles, education, social inclusion?
Right.
Well, the Friday Sports Program really hit all those targets.
Wow. So they were achieving multiple goals at the same time.
They were, yeah.
Smart thinking. So how did they actually structure the sports sessions?
Well, they had a really smart system. Each week they'd focus on a different sport.
Okay.
And they encouraged kids from different schools to participate together, and even kids of different genders.
So they were really mixing it up.
They were, and they also partnered with the local leisure center
Oh, wow.
to use their facilities.
Yeah.
So that further strengthened those community ties.
I see. So, we talked about how the program aligned with those UN goals.
Right.
But what about the inspiration for the program itself? Like,
Yeah.
where did the idea come from?
Well, while Best Start was definitely rooted in the needs of the local community,
Okay.
it was also influenced by a much bigger global idea,
Oh, interesting.
the UN's Convention on the Rights of the Child.
Okay.
And that document outlines a bunch of principles for how children should be treated.
Right.
And one of the key ideas is that everything should be done in the best interests of the child.
I see. So they were taking these global ideas and putting them into practice on a local level.
Exactly. They really localized those principles.
So it sounds like they had a really solid foundation
They did.
for this program. But did it work?
It did.
Did they actually achieve what they set out to do?
They did.
Like, what kind of impact did they have?
So they actually collected data to measure the program's success.
Okay, how'd they do that?
They used something called the Student Evaluation of Teaching Unit.
Ah, the CT.
Yeah, the CT, and it basically measures student satisfaction.
So were the students, like the pre-service teachers, happy
They were.
with their experience?
Yeah, the C2 data actually showed significant improvements in student satisfaction
Wow.
across all the units involved in Best Start.
Okay, so the student teachers were getting a lot out of it?
They were?
What about the kids?
Yes.
And the wider community?
Oh, they saw positive changes as well.
Okay.
Like the research paper is full of anecdotes
cool.
and quotes from teachers, parents, and even children who participated.
Wow.
For example, one parent was so relieved
Yeah.
that she could now afford to send all 3 of her kids to swimming lessons because they were free.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
It is, yeah.
What about the kids themselves?
Yeah.
Like, did they enjoy it?
Oh, they did.
Okay, good.
There's this one really sweet story about a kid who wrote a thank you letter
Oh.
saying how excited he was to have learned how to do a backhand in tennis.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, it's clear that Best Start was more than just a program. It was about creating positive experiences.
Right. I mean, it sounds like it was a huge success.
It was.
They achieved their goals. They had a positive impact.
Yeah.
Everyone was happy. But something tells me there's a but coming.
There is.
Oh, no. Don't tell me they lost funding.
No, it wasn't about money this time.
Oh, okay.
It was something much bigger.
What?
So back in May 2013,
Right.
Monash University, which was the university behind Best Start,
Right.
they made a big announcement.
Oh.
They decided to transfer their Gippsland campus to another university,
Oh, wow.
and they were going to create this new entity called Federation University Australia.
So basically a merger.
Yeah, essentially a merger.
Wow. So what happened to Best Start during all of this?
That's a good question.
Were they able to keep it running?
Well, the merger officially took effect on January 1st, 2014,
Right.
and Monash University stopped accepting new students at the Gippsland campus.
Oh, I see.
All the existing students were transitioned over to Federation University.
Right.
But Best Start, as it was originally designed, just couldn't survive the change.
Ah, so Best Start hit this like major roadblock with this whole university merger thing.
It did, yeah.
It's such a shame that it couldn't keep going, because it sounded like such a cool program.
Yeah, it really was a fantastic initiative.
It makes you think about how even the best programs aren't immune to these kinds of
External factors.
yeah, these big changes that they have no control over.
Right, and it really highlights that sustainability isn't just about money or community support.
Right.
It's also about how to navigate these institutional shifts,
Yeah.
like mergers and things like that.
And changes in leadership probably too.
Exactly, things like
Now,
that.
it's a good thing that even though Best Start had this unexpected ending, it still had this really positive impact.
It did.
And it sounds like it could even be a model for other programs to follow.
Yeah, Timothy Lynch.
The author of the article.
Yeah, he actually argues that Best Start is a great example of how these partnerships can help achieve the UN's Sustainable Development Goals.
Right. Especially those focused on health, well-being, and education.
Exactly.
It's almost like Best Start was kind of like a proof of concept,
Yeah,
showing that these partnerships can work.
it really was a demonstration of what's possible.
Yeah. It's just a shame that it couldn't continue.
It is.
But hey, at least it left a blueprint
It did.
for others to follow.
Absolutely. And it's a real testament to the people who created Best Start.
Yeah. And the people who ran it.
Right. The teachers, the students, everyone involved.
Yeah. It really shows what can happen when everyone comes together,
It does.
with a shared goal
And a willingness to work together.
to make a difference.
Exactly.
Thinking about Best Start, it really highlights that problem of the disconnect between theory and practice
Right.
in teacher training,
Right.
like we were talking about before. But is this just an Australian thing or?
No, it's definitely a global issue.
Okay.
And there's this growing movement to make teacher education more hands-on and experiential.
That makes sense. I mean, you wouldn't want someone performing surgery on you if all they'd ever done was read textbooks.
Right, exactly.
They got to get that experience.
They need the practice.
Yeah, I think what Best Start did really well
Yeah.
was to create this hybrid space
Yes.
where future teachers could learn and practice.
In a real-world setting.
Yeah, and not just with textbooks.
And they had those experienced mentors to guide them.
Right, exactly. And the other thing I thought was interesting was this strengths-based approach that Best Start used.
Yeah.
Instead of focusing on what was missing,
Right.
they focused on what the community already had.
Exactly. And that's a really powerful way to approach community development.
It is, because it's about empowerment, right?
It is, yeah.
It's about helping people use their skills and talents
But make a difference.
to create positive change.
Yeah.
Wow. This deep dive has been quite the journey.
It has been.
We started with this inspiring program,
Mm-hmm.
and then we had this unexpected twist with the university merger.
Right.
But even though Best Start ended,
Yeah,
its impact is still being felt.
it is.
And it's really given us a lot to think about.
Absolutely. And it's a great reminder that positive change is possible.
Yeah, no matter how big or small.
Exactly. And we don't have to wait for someone else to fix things.
Right.
We can all make a difference.
In our own community. So what's the one big takeaway you hope our listeners will remember from this whole Best Start story?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that we all have the power to create positive change. It doesn't matter where we are or what resources we have.
We can all find ways to contribute.
Exactly.
Whether it's volunteering
Yeah.
or donating to a cause we care about,
Supporting local organizations.
or even just being more aware of the needs in our community.
Right. There are so many ways to get involved.
I really hope that someone listening to this will be inspired by Best Start,
Yeah, me too.
and maybe they'll even try to adapt its model to their own community.
That would be fantastic.
Because like you said, we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right. We can build on what's already been done.
Learn from others' successes and challenges.
Yeah. And when we work together,
Mhm.
the possibilities are endless.
Absolutely. Well, this has been another fascinating deep dive.
It has.
Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And until next time, keep on learning and keep on exploring those amazing things happening in the world of education.
And don't forget to check out the show notes for links to the research article and other resources we talked about today.